This is Cruise Control. Your on-air automotive magazine with co-hosts Fred Staab and Les Jackson. Everything you need to know about new and used cars. Industry news. We'll fix or repair your car on the air. Fasten your seatbelts and let us take the wheel. Now, your ride is about to begin. Because you're on Cruise Control. Cruise Control. Cruise Control.
That's right. Your ride is about to begin. Whoops, it actually has begun. Buckle up because we've got a great hour of automotive information and hopefully fun. And keeping it fun, as always, is my co-host and friend, Les Jackson. Hey, Les Jackson.
Hey there, Fred. Which of us is driving? We should agree on that.
Oh, well, it's on that autonomous thing.
Yeah,
it just does
take the wheel. Yeah.
It just does that. Yeah.
That's right.
You're going to love this first story, Les, that we're going to do on Cruise Control. One manufacturer says sedans are not dead.
I'm going to go kiss that manufacturer when we get off the air. And also, Honda goes hydrogen right here in the USA. Pretty cool.
Yeah, building what could be a mass market hydrogen-powered vehicle. We'll talk about that. And then here's something that will affect pretty much anyone that's buying a new vehicle. New fuel mileage ratings were just released. What does that mean for the new models that will be available in the showrooms?
Yes, and we're going to talk tech, and the tech is going to be electric motors, and there's a new type of electric motor that could be the key to affordable EVs, all-electric vehicles. This could be exciting.
Yeah, very exciting, especially with manufacturers trying to get the prices down. And then Jeep says its lineup is going to get a whole lot less confusing because they say they have too many models, too many variants, and it's just too hard for them, to make them all. And they figure they can maybe make it easier for the consumer and, who knows what it will do to pricing. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you're right, and I'm glad they're doing it because it sure confuses me.
Well, they talked about, they used their example of the Jeep Wagoneer S, their new electric model, that it's only available in one trim level. Now, that can be great, or it can be a lot more expensive if you just wanted a base model. But as I always say on Cruise Control, most people want something that's got all the options, I think.
Well, that's right.
That's dealers stock it that way, and that's what people want.
Yeah. Everybody wants a choice. Everybody wants to personalize their vehicle to themselves. And if you can't do that, you'll go to somewhere who will do that for you, sell it to you.
Yeah.
So there.
Well,
how do you like that?
How do you like them apples? Well, we'll be back with Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. It's Fred Staab and Les Jackson. Check us out at our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and our other social media outlets. We will be right back because we are just getting started on Cruise Control.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control. We are driving along, and I'm delighted with the first story we're going to cover because our friends at Cadillac, it's the design chief, confirms that sedans are not dead. They're not going away. And I'm going to go shake his hand.
Yeah. This comes from The Drive, according to a report from The Drive, that General Motors, specifically Cadillac, will keep building sedans. And Michael Simcoe, who is the Global Design Vice President, GM Global Design Vice President, said SUVs are a necessary evil. They've taken over the market. and they've taken over the market, and they are a comfortable, rational purchase for some. For those who can't afford it, though, there's always a second car that isn't an SUV, and we certainly want to have a sedan in the portfolio at some point.
Well, he's right.
You and I have talked about this, and, when we have a press vehicle that's a sedan, it's almost relaxing. It's almost like, wow, I really look forward to this.
Absolutely. And I should say, while 78% of all purchases are SUVs, in the last 4.5 years, according to the NHTSA data, rear-end collisions are up 22% nationwide, and they're the only reason, other than poor attention, which is why they were while they were already 30% of crashes, is that they're SUVs. People can't see around them, and they get even more likely to hit something.
And you need you're running 21, 22-inch wheels, and you've got a lot of mass, so it takes longer to stop it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I mean, but, we always say there are people that need SUVs. Some people don't, though. I tell you, I still think the best vehicle is a hatchback. I
agree.
It just seems to, it's has enough utility in it. You put the rear seats down, you can load it up, yet it's a small package to drive around. And you and I have seen it where people just, it's like docking a cruise ship. Basically, some of these SUVs, right?
Well, and we've seen how badly people drive just trying to turn them around or even park them. And you just think, well, why did you buy this thing if you can't operate it?
Yeah.
But that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is. And as he said, a necessary evil. But for some people, as always, I mean, you might say, well, why do you need a crew cab dually? Well, some people tow giant fifth-wheel trailers, so they need it.
Sure.
It's just probably that a lot of people just follow on and see a large SUV, and that's what they get. I hate to say it, folks, but what do people need with a family? It's a minivan, It does.
You're right.
It's the best tool for the job. It may not be pleasing to people's psyches or looks, but it's easy to load and unload.
And certainly your teenagers' psyches. Oh,
right.
Please don't buy a minivan. I can't.
Or social life.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but the trend will probably continue for some time, we imagine, and it's just the way it is. So, hey, what can you do about it? But sedans will be part of the Cadillac lineup. And, I haven't seen one of these out there yet, but the Celestiq is supposed to be their bespoke. I have to use that word every
chance you can get.
Yes, their custom car. We're also going to do a story in a little bit about them wanting to get into the hypercar business, which seems strange to me, and Honda wants to do that too as well. But we shall see. But what do you think? Are you glad to hear that Cadillac will keep sedans in their lineup? Other manufacturers have too, as well, like Nissan, Kia, Hyundai, while brands like Ford and
Toyota,
GM have gone strictly away from them. So we will keep you informed, though. The only thing on that Celestiq, that light at the bottom corner of the
right,
it seems like that's going to go we're going to back into something.
It almost also looks a little bit like a bit of an afterthought. Well, what are we going to do instead of just having body work here?
Yeah. Well, it's not an afterthought that we're going to take a break and be back with more cruise control. When we come back, a lot of talk about hydrogen power. Well, Honda is putting it on the road. They're building hydrogen-powered vehicles in the U.S. So stay tuned. We'll tell you all about it.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. We are back, and we're going to talk about hydrogen power because Honda has started building hydrogen vehicles just this week in the U.S., Les, and I think that's pretty big news. I mean, you and I have been talking about this on Cruise Control for a while, and it's really starting to percolate and get going. And they are advancing their hydrogen strategy with the production of a fuel cell vehicle in Ohio. It is the CRVE, or FCEV, and they're using new components, a new weld system, and a number of other technologies. It's pretty exciting. I would love to see hydrogen expand because the future is not just electric or even hybrids. It is also hydrogen as well. And the takeaway from this vehicle is it is a CRV. It looks like a CRV, and that's going to be comforting to people.
Yep. Everybody's happy with the CRV. So it would be seamless driving. You just wouldn't even care what's propelling it, as long as you can fill it up reasonably conveniently. No reason it won't sell. And Honda, as we know, because we've tested in the past, and going back close to 20 years, the Clarity and the FCEV. Well, the Clarity was the first one. That was a sedan, and it was great. We had a hydrogen fuel station in Northeast Washington, D.C. here. It took 5 minutes to fill it up. Nothing, just like a gas. Drove exactly like a car, like any car on the road.
Yeah.
Just really nice.
Well,
so I love it. I just love it.
Well, they have identified a number of 4 actually core domains that they're thinking that a fuel cell system would work for, and that includes commercial vehicles like Class 8 trucks or delivery trucks,
right?
Stationary power stations, and construction machinery. I think it's great. I wonder though how. I worry that governments just see it as EV, EV, EV. Actually, technically, a fuel cell vehicle is an EV. But how are they putting money into hydrogen infrastructure, let's say for Class 8 trucks? Or are they just saying, nope, it's strictly EV?
No, I don't believe that the governments, at least on the East Coast, that, because we have meetings here in Washington every year with all of this. They're called the mobility talks.
Yes.
And I've attended them many times, and it's all out there. It's how do we establish the infrastructure? It's a joint federal, state government and manufacturers program to start installing these infrastructures, like first every 100 miles on the interstates, then every 50, then every 25, then every 10, and on and on. So it's very high speed charging stations. It's hydrogen. Right now, those are the only 2. There's solar generators at the facilities that produce most of their electricity. So it's pretty smart. It's not cheap, but everybody knows you have to do it. You don't have to do it by tomorrow, but you have to do it.
Yeah,
and we got to.
I'm just worried that it's a one size fits all solution, and I think they have to think beyond that. It's multiple technologies. It is the fuel cell. I would love to drive this CRV when it's done because, I was reading an article about there was the big push for, as you said, chargers every 50 miles. They built 7 of them with billions of dollars.
Well,
and some of it is outdated rules that they say the state controls roadside rest stops on highways, on federal highways.
Yeah.
And so they're not allowed to put them there, but that's where that was the whole $1 billion program. That's where they had to put them, as you said, every 50 miles or so. So
yeah,
it's a problem, you know.
And there you are with the individual states, and it's the politics of the states, and you have basically institutionalized corruption of some level at every state. Usually, the further south you go, the more there is. But it'll get worked out because it has to get worked out. We're going to run out of easy oil.
I'm all more a carrot versus a stick guy. And instead of bashing the oil companies, you could say, here's some advantages for you to create hydrogen filling stations. That's what I think.
Absolutely.
You know,
I don't understand why the oil companies haven't been producing hydrogen for decades. I don't understand that at all. But right now, I guess there's not enough market for them to buy.
Yeah. Well, you know, of course, James May had a clarity. James May, of course, from Top Gear fame and Grand Tour fame, and he said he loved it, but they closed up 4 hydrogen stations, and he said it was, you know, he had to sell it. He didn't want to. He liked it, but it made it just too difficult to fuel, you know?
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, it's like having a steam car, you know.
Well, you can burn wood in the steam car, right?
Right, but the problem is it's a hassle to drive it.
Yeah.
You know, when it just becomes too much of a bother.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, and it might be off on a tangent, but isn't there such a thing as a mobile hydrogen refueling truck, like a big something akin to a big propane truck that would come there with a hose?
No reason you couldn't have it. Technologically, you could have it. I don't know if legally you could have it. You've got all kinds of.
Does anyone use hydrogen right now for anything in manufacturing and have a truck that delivers it?
Sure, lots of hydrogen is used in manufacturing for all sorts of things, but it's stationary.
Yeah.
But they ship it around. I've seen tank trucks, you know, with hydrogen.
As they said in this article, the power stations, mobile or fixed power stations, once again, clean fuel. The only output is water. They've been talking for a long time to have power stations located in communities. People don't want them, but imagine if it just made no sound and only put out water. Maybe they would.
And it's distilled water. It's ultra pure water.
So you could use it for something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I think the future holds that very likely.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, as you say, you and I have driven early versions of these cars, so I look forward to driving this CRV and seeing what it's like. We'll have to check into that once it's ready to go. Well, coming up, we are going to talk about new mileage regulations that have been put out for the 2030s, early 2030s, just around the corner. Les, hard to believe, but
6 years.
But we are going to talk about that and tell you a little bit about what it might mean for the fleet. That's coming up on Cruise Control. And we're also going to talk about Jeep simplifying its lineup and why that might be a good thing or a bad thing for you. We'll talk about those items when we come back on Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine with Fred Staab and Les Jackson. We will be right back.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control. We're just rolling through. We kind of be on a theme this show with technologies and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you got a story on the new standards for miles per gallon. They're going to hit in 2031, 38 miles per gallon in 2031. That would be the average, up from 29 this year. I think what it means is just virtually every vehicle will be a hybrid.
Yeah. And now these standards have been agreed on and then agreed against and then agreed on for 30 years now. And there were actually two big automotive associations here in town that were created strictly to fight the mileage standards.
Right.
By lobbyists. But anyway, they went away. And used to be 50 miles per gallon by 2030. With SUVs not to get that much. So 38 these days with hybrids and efficient engines, no reason you can't do it. A lot of them do it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. More hybrids, mild hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, this is easy to get to. And it means a lot. It means, a whole lot less CO2 going in the air, a whole lot less money going out of your wallet.
Wouldn't it also be easy to just pump a bunch of different models in there, electric models? Like GM used to do that with brand engineering. So you make the Bolt, right. a Buick and a Cadillac, and that's how you do it. I mean, if you put like 4 more electric vehicles into the mix and make everything a hybrid, this should be achievable, shouldn't it?
Well, it should be very achievable, and not getting much pushback from the manufacturers like they used to, because the more and more of the manufacturers, especially the Koreans and Japanese, okay, fine, we can do that.
Yeah, we'll add 5 more different models to our lineup.
That's right. It'll of course between now and 2030, I'm sure there will be some political wrangling to either delay it or change it a little bit.
Do you think it will? Do you think it will cut back on the number of large internal combustion SUVs? Do you think large SUVs will go all electric? Like, let's say they'll all be like the EV9.
Yeah, I think they probably will, because that's where they just can't get the mileage. They're monsters because they weigh whatever, 6, 7, 8,000 pounds. Yeah, so it makes perfect sense. Although I'm sure the people that own those will say, well, I want 600-mile range. Okay, they can do that.
Yeah, of course. Then it becomes a 10,000-pound battery.
It does, and very expensive. But they're already spending $100,000 for these huge things.
And keep in mind, this is an average. So that means if you have a lot of electrics, a lot of plug-in hybrids, a lot of fuel-efficient hybrids, then you can still, if you're Ford, let's say, afford to build in your lineup a V8 Mustang GT. Maybe that's a hybrid as well, right?
That's right. And it's the corporate average fuel economy. So it's everything you make has to average that.
Yeah.
Or you pay a fine and you can still make it. You can still sell it.
Yeah. Well, it's easier for larger manufacturers like Kia or Hyundai or others, that can spread this out and have be a full line. I'll call them a full line auto manufacturer. And let's face it, Ford and GM are no longer full-line manufacturers. They only really build trucks and SUVs and crossovers. They don't build cars anymore, except Cadillac is saying they will have sedans in the lineup. But, Ford hasn't had a sedan in its lineup for quite some time now. So that's a real interesting situation for them. Do they become a niche player with these things and not have a full lineup? But I think it's obtainable. I also think you're going to see a lot of plug-in hybrids that get incredible range, where 120 miles of electric range might become the norm. We've already seen this with the Equinox in China, that there is a model that can go over 100 miles on electric only and then convert to being a hybrid. So I think you're going to see more plug-in hybrids as well, but they'll have greater range. And typically now they get about 32 miles of electric range before they become a hybrid. So I think you're going to see more range out of those. And frankly, 100 miles of range would in most weeks last me a long, long time.
That'll go a long way, for the average driver.
Yeah, and it's probably more efficient to have that type setup that becomes a hybrid, because then you don't have to have another car for long trips or rent a car or whatever. So I think it's doable, but we would like your thoughts on it. What does it mean for future cars? It probably means they will get more expensive. You figure, I always use this rough rule of thumb, if a small crossover costs $30,000 as a non-hybrid model, and then you add a hybrid powertrain to it, it roughly adds about $5,000, making it $35,000. If you want a plug-in hybrid, it's 40 to low 40s, so it's kind of like $5,000 per step. So it will add money, but then once again there'll be more hybrids. You look at something like the Kia Niro, which I tested. It got 53 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, it's just
easy. And that was just not the plug-in hybrid model. That was just the hybrid model. Had a lot of utility and easily got 53 miles to the gallon. So more vehicles like that, and you can certainly hit this number without saying that everyone has to be in a small car, right?
Well, that's right. And, those of us who test these things, we don't drive them gently. we
drive them normally, yeah.
Just drive normally, sometimes even less than normal. So, we see these numbers. It's pretty impressive.
Hey, let me ask you a question, Les. Talking about mileage and electric vehicles, and, I always said the best way to get electric vehicles in and start using them as delivery vehicles and things like that, things that are on the road a lot. I'm going to ask you, so if you were an investing man that wanted to get into the stock market and said there's big growth in those electric cars and trucks, what would you invest in? What company would you invest in that has the best return, electric vehicles that have the best return? Any guess?
Well, I would guess Toyota.
Okay.
Probably wrong.
Well, want to try one more?
Not an offshoot of Toyota.
Nope. It is Bluebird school buses.
Okay, I would never have guessed that, period.
That is the best performing EV stock out there, and they have electric buses, a couple of different types of them, and that they are the best growth-oriented electric vehicle stock that you can buy right now. It's not Tesla. It's Bluebird buses, school buses. Interesting, right?
And yeah, I mean, actually, and they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Never not seen a Bluebird school bus.
Yeah, I think they basically own the market. There may be other manufacturers, but I'm not really aware of them. But I remember riding Bluebird buses when I was in school, you know. They've been around since 1927, believe it or not.
Oh, man. And, they only drive a certain number of hours a day.
Yeah.
You know,
These buses have a 130-mile range. They take it back to the yard after the kids are dropped off, and it charges overnight. So, makes sense.
That's terrific. We have some local, they're called dash buses, or, the counties have different names for their local buses. And we have some electric ones. They're quite nice.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to use EV technology. Hey, when we come back, we're going to tell you about Jeep. Simplifying its lineup. Is it good news or bad news? Well, might be a bit of both. We'll have that and more on Cruise Control when we return. Fred Staab and Les Jackson, keep it buckled up. We got more to go.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back. It's Talking Tech time, which we love to do. And this time it's GM's axial flux motor. This could make EVs much more affordable. Electric motors are wonderful. They're simple, but powerful ones are expensive to make. There's just an awful lot of copper wire, hundreds of miles of it in an electric motor, and very high quality materials. So if they can come up, well, let me start with how today's motors work. What do you think, Fred?
Yeah, because there is a good bit of tech here in it, and it's almost like, from how I read it, Les, it's almost like keeping an engine in its power band all the time, like selecting the right cam that you're always making torque and power in the usable torque range and the usable RPM range, let's say, right?
That's right, and they're known as radial flux motors because they're kind of like an alternator. In fact, it is, and it's you have a donut shaped stator, which is the the stator is in the cylinder, and that's magnets wound with all kinds of copper wire. Then you have, and it's called the stator because it stays in position. And then you have the rotor, which is what's turning, and it's fitted in there very, very closely, spaced like a millimeter or two. And that's embedded with a bunch of magnets too, and they are incredibly efficient, incredibly reliable. They last forever. Incredibly expensive too. So the axial flux motors, which it's a little tougher to explain an axial flux, but it has some technology advantages that can make it cheaper, lighter, which is really important, but it needs to do what the other electric motors do, which is stay in that power band.
So they say this could be great for the next generation Bolt. They could put a smaller, lighter motor in there that maybe doesn't have as much power, but it has the right torque, and it's using that torque. It's like building an engine again. You wouldn't design it to say, well, my maximum torque comes at 6,500 RPM, because you're not going to run there all the time. So you're optimizing this motor to give its best output at 55 miles an hour or something like that.
Exactly. And the downside of the axial flux is that the field, the electric field, magnetic field actually weakens at certain speeds and at certain times. So you want to maximize it, as Fred just said, for a perfect operational level. So It's kind of like the electrical equivalent of the Chrysler turbine car of the 1960s. That ran at 30,000 RPM, and as long as it stayed there at that speed, and you used gearing and everything else, it ran great. But you couldn't throttle the engine itself.
Interesting.
Very cool.
More technology for sure, and
they're going to figure it out. GM is really good at engines.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if this makes the cut for the next Chevy Bolt too, which they are really thinking about that as the that's going to take on all the Chinese Seagulls and inexpensive $9,000 vehicles, entry-level EV vehicles. It won't be $9,000 cheap, but then again, it won't catch on fire either.
Yeah.
Hopefully. No comment on the old Bolt, but hey, let's talk about Jeep. It's an interesting story here from Jeep, and it could go two ways. Jeep wants to make its model lineup less confusing, according to its new CEO, and he looks at the Wagoneer S as an example for the future of the lineup. There's only one trim model when it comes to the Wagoneer S, and that's it. So you really, it's not 6 different trim levels and different powertrains, and some are have a different all-wheel drive system or 4x4 system. He wants to do this across the lineup, and it will mean fewer models, but I'm wondering if it's a good thing. Yes, it's easier to order. It's easier for them to build, but it might mean you're going to have to buy equipment that you don't want to buy, right?
Well, that of course, the dealers love that, but the manufacturers don't love that. They want you to be happy with exactly what you want, but they make 12 different models of Jeep, and that's a lot. I mean, I can't keep track of them. I don't know about you, Fred, but
No. I mean, just the Wrangler alone, they make the Sport S, the Willys, the Rubicon, the Sahara, the Rubicon X, the Rubicon 392, and the Rubicon 392 Final Edition, and you can get them in either 2-door or 4-door. Plus, you can get different powertrains in there, V6s, hybrid models. And then there's a whole bunch of other options to go along with that, different 4x4 systems. I mean, it's sort of like Jeep's whole lineup is sort of like ordering a pickup truck. If you've ever looked at that, there's so many different options that you can get. And yes, that's expensive to build, and it's expensive for dealers. But I do think nowadays dealers order all top-of-the-range vehicles pretty much, don't they?
I think they do. It's certainly my experience that they just order in the top stuff, and if you don't like it, you can put an order in and wait for whatever you want to come. And that's it. Because you can't blame the dealer. They basically can't order a whole bunch of every single variation. They'd lose they'd go bankrupt in just the just the floor plan. So
they look at what sells. They look at what sells, and that's what they order. So that's why you no longer see base model pickup trucks, if they even make them, with rubber mats and a floor shift. I don't even think they do make them. But
I don't think Jeep makes them.
No. You'd be hard-pressed to find a base model. You probably, when it comes to the Wrangler, you'd be hard-pressed to find the Sport or Sport S, I believe, even, to get into it. Maybe they have a loss leader that they put out there. But
that's right. The economy model.
Oh, but that one's sold. But we've got this one here that's got the chrome wheels on it. So
that's our demonstrator, and it has 37,000 miles on it.
Right, and coffee cups in the back. Yeah, I remember seeing that in a showroom, a brand new Camaro with coffee cups in the back. I said, "Is this the shop? Is this the shop car where did you take for getting parts and stuff?" It's like, what? And the guy said, "What are you, an engineer?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm an engineer because I noticed all the garbage in the coffee cups in the back." Yep. Yes, I am. I'm an engineer. Anyway, I don't know. But we do appreciate you listening to Cruise Control, and we want to thank you. And if you get a chance, head on on over to all our social media platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, X, and others. It's time for me to say I'm Fred Staab.
I'm Les Jackson.
We are going to see you down the road.
Bye.